just by way of mentioning my name, Dr. Benjamin Aluko from the University of Ibadan. I think I should start. Well, let me say good evening, ladies and gentlemen. With all due respect, I would ask for the permission to stand on the existing protocol as it is often said, right, so that I don't begin to mention this and all that. Having said that, I want to especially appreciate the leadership of the Commonwealth Scholars and Fellows Alumni Association for the privilege to stand before these wonderful people to make my presentation tonight. Specifically, I want to thank Dr. Abiola Adimula and Dr. Samuel Ekundayo for the honor done me by inviting me. I want to make an appeal, and it's an appeal that you people will probably help me to pressure on Dr. Adimula to come and share with us where she's getting the energy. Honestly, to drive all our multi-dimensional engagement. Honestly, we need to know how she's doing it. Let's put our hands together for her. She's a wonderful woman. Thank you very much. Well, having said that, as I said, I'll be speaking to us on the title Improving Democratic Governance for Sustainable Development, for Sustainable Peace and Development in Nigeria. Having said that, I think I should start my discussion with this quotation, and I want us to listen very carefully. A quotation made by Professor Osagai. Osagai is the DG of the Nigerian Institute of Affairs as we speak. It says democracy is a process that grows or diminishes over time. Once installed, democracy is expected to grow and become deepened, or else it can stagnate or regress into authoritarianism and non-democratic forms. And my interpretation of this is that we have a responsibility. And I say, thus it becomes imperative for us to constantly interrogate our democratic governance system with a view to improving it for the accomplishment of the goals of sustainable peace and development in particular, and for the promotion of our common good in general. Now, by way of looking at the connections between democracy, democratic governance, sustainable peace and development, and I say every society rises or falls at the altar of governance. I'm trying to emphasize the importance of governance to what becomes of any society. And I say governance largely determines whether a nation state will be classified as developed or underdeveloped. It determines whether a state will be classified as failed or failing state, or even a rogue state. You know, I'm sure you've heard of, this state is failing in so many countries in Africa. We had a special case of failed state in Somalia under when Siad Barre died. And so when you're talking about state development or peace, all rest on the level quality of governance in that society. And you will agree with me that governance deficit is clearly responsible for the low level of Nigeria's development and her multidimensional challenges. Whether you are looking at Boko Haram, insecurity, criminality, the level of poverty and all that, they are all tied to the governance system in Nigeria. And so, it is very important that we begin to interrogate our democratic governance system if we are going to have sustainable peace and remarkable development in Nigeria. Now let's take a little look at those concepts that undergird this lecture. in terms of democratic governance, in terms of sustainable peace and sustainable development. And I say democratic governance is a governance variant that rests essentially on the pillars of popular participation, of the citizenry, and the leadership accountability. So when you are talking about democracy, you are talking about a governance system that rests on two pillars: the participation of the people and leadership accountability. And so it is a governance process that establishes power in the hands of the people. So you can begin to interrogate, our democratic governance system in the context of the fact that it is a governance system that establishes power in the hands of the people. So I don't know whether we can actually say that in our context, power resides with the people. So if that is not the case, then there is need for us to continually interrogate our democratic process with a view to improving it. And I say sustainable peace attempts to broaden the peace agenda to include proactive measures aimed at building on peace where it already exists, by reinforcing the structures,
recording in progress,
the attitudes and institutions that have sustained social cohesion and contribute to a sustainable and peaceful society. So when you are talking of sustainable peace, you are actually talking about, putting in structures, putting in place structures that will make peace to last and peace to endure in the society. For sustainable peace, I'll be relying on the World Bank, report, which says sustainable development refers to that development that meets the needs of human security in all ramifications of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So when you are talking about sustainable development, we are talking about harnessing the resources of a state in a manner that the needs of the people in this present generation will be met, and at the same time you are not compromising the future, meeting the needs of the future generation. So I don't know whether we are actually taking that into account the way we are running our system. Now we have a clear understanding, of those concepts, and so we can begin to interrogate those concepts within the context of democratic governance. Now I'm going to look at the Nigerian state and crisis of governance. The leadership of Nigerian state has been struggling to put in place a governance framework that will facilitate the promotion of peace and sustainable development in the country. We have been doing that, we have been struggling, we have been doing, changing constitution and all that. At independence, the nation started with a parliamentary system. Following the termination of civilian rule in 1966, the nation had a number of military regimes. The nation had had constitutional reforms to fashion out acceptable and effective governance model. In 1999, the nation returned to democracy anchored on a federal system. Today, after a reasonably credible electoral process, some people are calling for the establishment of an interim government. Well, let me not be too hard on such. Otherwise, I will have said that those calling for the establishment of an interim government are either lunatics or those who do not wish this nation well. Because my understanding is that you don't begin to call for an interim government when you have had an election. It is when you are not able to have an election, and the tenure of the government in place is expiring. That is when you begin to talk of an interim government. But now you have had an election, so if there are issues with the election, you see, in a democratic system, society, the court is there for you to go and challenge, the electoral process, and not that you should begin to ask for interim government. And I ask myself, now if you go and put an interim government in place, after the expiration of that interim government, what next? So it's like you are going back to where we were some over 20 years ago. And so having left, and I'm saying that having left authoritarianism for democratic opening in 1999, you see, when you are talking about democracy, you are talking about four phases. You talk of governance process, you say authoritarianism, democratic opening, democratic transition, democratic consolidation. Now we left authoritarianism in 1999 for what we call democratic opening, right? And in 2015 we had what we call democratic transition. It is so called because we had a situation whereby, the party in power lost power and power was given to an opposition. So at that level, you are talking of democratic transition. We have had that. So after democratic transition, what we should be focusing on, what should we be discussing now, is democratic consolidation. Not that we should be talking about the interim government that will make us go back and start over again. So, and I ask myself, how many times are we going to start all over again? And so I'm saying, I'm emphasizing, those calling for interim government do not mean well. And so our concern now is that, look, we have a democratic system we are running. Yes, it's not perfect. There are lapses here and there. So our concern should be, how do we improve on this democratic governance system, for us, so that we'll be able to achieve why there was clamor for democracy in the first place. The clamor for democracy in 1999, 1998 and all that, was based on certain understanding. And so our concern now should be, how do we improve this democratic governance system such that it will become a governance system that will promote our Commonwealth. So that is why I've chosen that topic. When Dr. Etudayo gave me the frame with him, in less than 2 seconds, we sat together and said, why not just put this? Because that is the concern now. We need to improve our democratic governance system. Now, we're looking at this in the context of sustainable peace development. And I asked the question, what are the challenges to sustainable peace and development in Nigeria? We need to interrogate those. Number one, we talk about poverty. The World Bank report said the nation has become the poverty capital of the world. The statistics are there to establish this assertion. Poverty is a serious threat to effort at building sustainable peace and development in Nigeria. Number two, rising population. The rate at which the nation's population is growing is scary and poses a serious threat to efforts at building sustainable peace and development. With a population of over 200 million and still rising, the poverty level in the country will certainly grow worse if nothing is done to address this challenge. And then, of course, there's the issue of climate change. That one is a global challenge. But you see, the extent of, or the effect of this on any society is a function of governance. So, you will find a situation whereby climate change will have a devastating effect on the Nigerian state, more than what will happen in Ghana or even Benin Republic. The whole thing boils down to governance process, right? And also we begin to talk of endemic corruption. The nation is one of the leading corrupt nations on earth. We are the top bracket of the global corruption index. This is a fact. We are not being patriotic by saying that. So I was at a meeting in the US presenting a paper, and after my presentation, a guy came to me and said, you shouldn't have said that this is happening. I said, look, they know more than what they know more than what we know, because prior to that meeting, an American approached me and said, Dr. Benjamin, your country has humongous natural human resources, but unfortunately, your country is not doing well at all. You understand? And the man said it was because of corruption. So if a white man, an American, is telling me that, and it's there in the public land, why are we deceiving ourselves? And so we say we need to do something, about the endemic corruption in this country. If we are going to talk about sustaining peace, when Goodluck Jonathan administration was going to leave power, there was a case of resources meant for development, meant to purchase arms, right? to fight Boko Haram that went into the hands of the political class. I made a operation in Washington, D.C. I was talking about financing, party financing, and implication on peace and governance and all that. So I was making reference to that. Resources were a mark to buy weapons to fight Boko Haram, but the resources went to the hands of some people, and so Boko Haram was let loose. Is that not something that is inimical, to achievement of certain peace and development? Clearly. So we need to really discuss about corruption in this country. I also mentioned what I call predatory federal system of government. This is what we are practicing in Nigeria. Nigerians will come around and say we are a federal state. What we are practicing is a mockery of federalism. This is not how a federalism is run. A situation whereby the accountant general of a state will go to Abuja to be sleeping hotel to collect money that to run his state is not federalism. It is not federalism. In a federal system, the federating states are expected to generate resources and send to the center, for the center to use that resources to take care of our collective interest. Not that accountant general should be going to Abuja.
Recording in progress.
So we need to do something. This is what we are practicing. We need a federal system that is anchored on the principles of justice, equality, fairness, and the rule of law. One driven by the principles of breeding social capital, rather than the one driven by the principle of bonding social capital. A multi-ethnic society thrives on the principles of breeding social capital. When you say breeding social capital, you're talking about the social capital that cross across ethnic lines, that cross across religious lines. That is breeding rather than bonding. When you are talking about bonding, you're talking about, we belong to the same religion, we belong to the same Islamic sect. But in a multi-ethnic society, what you need for social cohesion and peace and development is what we call bridging social capital. So our federal system, needs to be anchored on that. And of course, the challenge of insecurity. The level of insecurity in Nigeria today is a serious threat to efforts at promoting sustained peace and development, especially when you take into account its devastating effect on the much needed foreign direct investment. They won't carry your money and go and invest in a society that is so insecure. Nobody does that. And so if we are going to really develop, we need to address the challenge of insecurity. As I'm beginning to round up, I want to raise the fundamental question. And the question that looks large now is, how do we improve democratic governance for sustainable peace and development in Nigeria? That is the thesis of this work. My intervention to the need to improve democratic governance for sustainable peace and development in Nigeria will be anchored on 3 pillars. Pillar number 1, I call state building pillar. And I say state building involves reinventing the core institutions of the state to become capable in terms of performing its mandate, accountable to the people, and responsive to the needs of the mass of the people. In addition, there is a need for state institutions to become proactive, especially in terms of responding to negative early warning signs. It is important, I argue, to build the capacity of state institutions to respond to conflict early warning signs and likely impediments to developmental programs. So, building the capacity of the state is very, very important. Number 2 is what I call leadership recruitment process pillar. Leadership recruitment process pillar. There is the need to reinvent the nation's leadership recruitment process, such that those who are not only competent but are driven by passion to serve are elected to positions of leadership. Nigeria is one of the nations on the face of the earth that allows all manner of character to assume position of leadership. It doesn't happen in civilized society. It is only the jungle that we find the kind of thing we are practicing here. That is the truth. You see, when you throw leadership out there for anybody to just step into it and be in charge of the affairs of the state, that it can only happen in the job. So if we are going to get it right, there is a need for us to take a critical look at our leadership recruitment process. I'm sure you will agree with me that many of us in this hall today cannot vie to become anything in this country, because the whole process has been monetized so much so. As a university lecturer, where am I going to get the millions to go and negotiate for to become a counselor? So if I cannot become a counselor, the implication is that you can begin to imagine the quality of people that will be going there. So it means those who can probably get money and then don't throw it to it. I won't have my fund and go and throw into it, because if I'm going there to serve. You see, but people go and sell their property to go and contest, because they are going there not to serve. So we need to take a critical look at our leadership recruitment process if we are going to really promote peace. And of course, we read in this country when an assistant inspector general of police retired, was at the National Assembly, and he looked right and said, but the people here, these are people I had arrested at one point or the other because of my career. We read it, true or false. We read it. It was in the paper. It's not that anybody is making it up. The man said it. What is happening here? These are people I had arrested for, So we need to begin to look at that and ensure that those who are committed to serving the people become our leader. And I say the Nigerian state is today bogged down by multiple challenges, and it's a leadership that is strategic in approach to addressing this challenge. And the last one, as I round up, is says building interest of informed citizens in the public space. As the need to build the interest of the informed citizen in what operates in the public space, where the state operates. Where the state operates, if you do a proper analysis, you are likely going to come up with the idea that the informed citizens of this country are not showing enough interest in the political process. I have been to meetings of political parties, right? When I got there, the caliber of the quality of people I met, these are people who are going there to say, somebody that is contesting the House of Assembly will bring rice today for distribution. Yes. We learned that somebody that just arrived from the UK, he wants to contest to the House of Rep, and the fellow has brought money. These are people that will go there to say they are doing politics. And then you can begin to imagine what will likely become of such a nation. So there is a need for us, the informed people. You see, democracy can be very dangerous. Democracy can be so counterproductive if it is not being driven by those who are informed. It is a governance system that thrives on informed citizenry, right? Because it's a governance system that is talking about majority of people determining what happened. So the implication is that if you have 40 of us in this group and 30 of us do not know their right from their left, and we're going to vote, then we are submitting to those 30 who does not even understand issues at stake. So there is a need for us to do that. And my submission is this: in every society, you have the state, you have the civil society, and it has been clearly established that the leadership of the state cannot on their own reinvent the governance process for the common good because of the benefit that is given to them. And so it becomes the responsibility of the civil society to continually interrogate the governance process with a view to improving the system for sustainable peace and development. Thank you for listening.
As an human resource expert, when you talk about rising population, what I see is opportunities, opportunities, opportunities. I think the real issue with human resource or rising population being a problem is because we have a governance system who is not
recording in progress,
who is not taking care or planning for the increment in the human resource. What would you suggest that the government can do, even with this present corrupt state? I think there's something they can still do. There's something they can still do, notwithstanding the corrupt state, so that we can view the rising population as an opportunity for us and not a challenge to the sustainable peace and governance in Nigeria.
Sorry, sir. My question, because I was also going to ask a question along that like that. Yes, some countries that they have such large population, they have always used this as a strength. How can we deploy our own population too? How can we just use it as a strength instead of weakness? Thank you, sir.
It's a very good question. Because today, when you're talking about nations that are really, really doing well, you mentioned China, right? And of course, India is not really right? They have, like you have rightly said, population can actually be an asset, right? When I was discussing about democracy, I did say, well, democracy is a fantastic governance system, right? But it could actually be counterproductive, depending on those managing it. So with rising population, we can still take advantage of that population, even to make our economy grow. But you see, you need two things. You need to ask questions about the quality of that population. That is very important, right? If you have a population of illiterate who cannot distinguish their right from their left, you'll be contending with forces that will be dragging the nation backward, right? So if you have it, and that brings also the issue of the need to increase our budget for education. We need to educate our population. An educated population is an asset, and a population that is not educated becomes a threat to anything you want to put on the table. No, that's the truth of the matter. That is the truth of the matter. In fact, if you are looking at it even from a very small level of a family, right? And then you have about 5 children in that family. If they are educated, what you are likely going to get, is going to be much more encouraging than when you even have 3 in a family, 3 children in a family, and they are not educated. So I quite agree with you that population can be an asset, but we should be looking in the direction of a population that is educated. You cannot have a situation whereby 50% of the youth of children that are supposed to be in school are roaming the streets, right, with balls in their hands begging for money, and then you expect that to be an advantage. It can never be. It can never happen. You understand? So we should begin to look in the direction of educating our industry, and of course, a responsible leadership. We harness this population for the benefit of everybody. So we need a leadership that can actually take advantage of this. We have the resources, but where are we today with the monstrous resources that we have? Right? We're still there with oil there, with horrible land for agriculture and all that. Where are we? And so we say education of the citizenry and responsible leadership. We leverage on a population to make Nigeria a leading nation on
mentioned climate change as a challenge, as one of the challenges that we have against sustainable peace and development. So my question, and you mentioned the definition of sustainable development. That says, let me just say summary. Yes, addressing what we have now and protecting the needs of the future generation. So my question now is, fine, presently climate change is a problem, more than even a problem for us in Nigeria, which we are trying to tackle, but which we are hoping that in the nearest future we will see solutions. So my question now is, you mentioned it as a challenge. So what solution would you prefer to, for the purpose of sustainable peace and development? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. I'm the director of the Platform Center of Excellency in Multidisciplinary Studies. My center is actually focusing on what we call early warning and early response system. See, in the course of discussing what could be done to save our society and make our society go on the right path, I did mention the importance of state building, which is about reinventing state institutions. Now, I also said that climate change is a global challenge. It is not only about Nigeria, and so nations are devising ways of addressing that. Now, what we're expected to do is this. We are not doing too well. We are not doing well at all in terms of responding, to early warning signs, negative early warning signs. And that is what we should begin to look at. When Boko Haram came to pick the Chibok girls, Amnesty International, you should go and check their report. Amnesty International will tell you that we gave a signal. I don't know whether you read about that. That we gave a signal to the security agencies that Boko Haram may likely go to Chibok to carry those guys. If you Google and check on Amnesty International and Boko Haram, the 2014 incident, so the implication is that there was what we call early warning signal, right? But the agencies of the state that were expected, to quickly respond, didn't do anything. And so, what we never wanted happened to us. So, the point I'm making is this, that we need to begin to, reconstitute state institutions in a manner that they become proactive, to issues that may lead to either conflict or become an impediment to developmental programs and projects. That's the way to go. In nations out there, before these things happen, they begin to put some structures in place. If they cannot prevent it, at least to mitigate the effect of such. And we need to begin to look into that. After climate change, I can assure you something else, probably more devastating, may happen. What are we putting in place? Right? And yesterday, we had a defense of our student at the Department of Peace, the immense student. And the exam examiner, a lady wrote this MA dissertation on Boko Haram, on this, what do they call it now? This sickness that almost consumed nations out there. COVID-19, sorry. And the external examiner was asking the student, are you really sure that we had COVID-19 in Nigeria? Because the Kogi governor didn't do anything. He said there was no COVID-19. In fact, he said it was a scam. And I also recall that in Cross River State, the governor said, I'm not going to do anything. You understand? And I was now responding to the extent, I said, well, I am not too sure we actually had COVID-19. Because I always go to Bodija market. I don't know, some of us know Bodija market. If you see the way people are robbing themselves and all that, we should record not less than about 1 million deaths in Ibadan. But that didn't happen. That didn't happen. And I said, well, imagine if that had happened. The COVID-19 had actually, faced us. Imagine the number of deaths we would have recorded. You see, imagine the health system in those nations, in Germany, across the globe, and what they experience vis-a-vis what you have in place here. And I will tell you, we don't have anything in place here, to confront such challenge. And so the way out is that we should begin to restructure our institutions to be proactive and then be able to respond quickly to incidences like that. Thank you.
Let's take it together.
Thank you so very much, sir. It was really a very insightful lecture for me. Okay, while you started, sir, you were talking about the importance of governance and how that, when we see a failed state, we see a failed state as a result of the government or governance. So I want to speak in light of high-profile corruption or high-profile cases that is not translating to conviction, like in Nigeria. We see it, we hear about it, people talk about it, but at the end of it, we don't know what happened. They just did the cases and all. And we see that, the people that's supposed to fan the flame or the potential of a nation to flame are the one riding on the waves of corruption in Nigeria. So now looking at our topic, trying to improve it. So my question is now that, now the public confidence is affected already. Like, people know that these people, they are just dead. Even those people know that they've stolen our money, they will still come back there again. We elect them again. So now my question is, so what specific measure, like, to really be sincere about it now, will you recommend, like, in this instance, for improving democratic governance, for achieving, because these are the people that are there that will improve it. So what will you say on that, sir?
Other questions.
Thank you very much, sir. I would just like to ask, in terms of the challenges you listed, in terms of the challenges you listed, can I ask, is the high rate of unemployment slash unemployability and the digital divide, can we consider them as key challenges to sustainable peace? And secondly, with the high rate of immigration, the JAPA rate, so we are left with a very concentrated job market where everyone looks good on paper, but when you bring them in, they can't do the job. So can we consider that as well as a challenge? And what would you recommend as solutions, practical solutions? Thanks very much, sir.
Thank you, sir, for the presentation. I want to come from the angle of poverty. Nigeria, we have about 70% of the population in agriculture. And these people, they get very low yield and the poor quality products that cannot even enter UK, most of them. And climate change now, high temperature, rainfall pattern changed, very heavy during the rainy season with a lot of nutrient loss. And after a while, we have the drought. And we have the opportunity that, just as we said, there are means of overcoming this, but the institutions are not supporting. So the issue of climate, I attended a summit on climate change in last month in Cotonou under the program. We were looking at long-term climate change data. Africa is considered as data lacking continent. We don't have the data to use. And when it comes to long-term, it is when you have up to 10 years or even more than that you can now use it to model and predict what will happen. We don't have this. I got a document about the rainfall, possible rainfall for this year. And for Ile-Ife, we've had rainfall more than 8 times this year. The document said rain will fall in Ile-Ife on 12th of April, when we've had about 8. So it's not reliable. So what are we to do? And we have, like I'm working with a credit society that now, isn't there Okiogun? They call it Okio-Odon. The dry season, the drought is now increasing in that area. And the indigenous now said, our farmers are not getting anything again. So they started to import organic fertilizer from Netherlands. And the man said when he opened one to put around his plants and gave to the farmers who registered with them, then after a week he opened it and he saw maggots. He said, these are waste materials, and came to us in OAE. And we prepared an SOP for organomineral fertilizer production for them. They imported machine from China, and now they are producing the fertilizer. For the registered farmers with them, 2001, there was 32 days drought with them. Their maize, in fact, they got bumper harvest. Meanwhile, the farmers that did not use this fertilizer lost their crops. So we have, some of us, we have the expertise that can be used. So how can we project this? Because I see when you say you write proposals, you will not be contacted when the money is released. And you just see that they will, reported something. So what's the solution? What is the way out, sir? Thank you. Last.
Thank you very much, sir, for the lecture. My question is, you've actually talked on problems we are faced with in this country towards ensuring sustainable development. But I think most of these problems have been top to bottom. So how do we? Because I believe over time we've learned that, okay, it's from them, top to bottom, generating problems. But as individuals, what contribution can we make to reducing the effect of all the factors you've listed earlier, the poverty, climate change and all? Fine, people have things in their head on what to do, but they should be from okay, you've been in offices and you know this is feasible. So what kind of advice can you give for those who want to try to solve these problems at the individual level, and how to support people too? So I think that would be kind of helpful for someone like me. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much for those questions, brilliant questions. The first question was about the issue of corruption and the fact that corrupt cases are tried, and before you say Jack Robinson, you are not hearing anything again, Abi. And my intervention will be that is happening because of the nature of our institutions, right? Critical core state institutions are driven by personalities rather than by values, establishing such institutions. Today, if you look around, I was asking a question a week ago about this NDLA. And I asked, where was NDLA before you brought Buba Marwa? Yes, where was NDLA? Nobody was hearing about NDLA before Buba Marwa. Is it that people were not bringing drugs to this country before Buba Marwa came? No. It is because we now have a personality that is committed to fighting the drug war, right? And but that is, we really appreciate Buba Marwa, General Buba Marwa, but we should go beyond that. What becomes of NDLA after Buba Marwa? You know? And so our concern should actually be, how do we strengthen these institutions that they don't have to rely on a personality. You see, institutions in America, you know, virtually run on their own. And I tell you that, look, many of the presidents that they have produced in America, you know, it's not as if they are brilliant as you can imagine. No, it is because we have a system that has been put in place, and these are state institutions. 2 days ago, Trump himself was dragged before, was arrested. You know, it is because of the vibrancy of the state institutions. And so it is very important for us. Today, some corrupt cases were dropped because the person had crossed to APC. You know? Is it? Because the person had crossed to APC. So it is not about what you have done was wrong. It is about which political party you belong to. You know, it is wrong because you are not in our party. It is right because you are in our you are in our party. You understand? So our concern should be, look, institutions should be committed to performing their mandate. You know, there is what we call structural functionalism. Structures being set up to perform their functions. Until we get to that stage, police institutions set up to arrest criminals. We not say, oh, I will not arrest that man because he's so person. You understand? Until you find a police institution that will be ready to arrest anybody, irrespective of your position. That is when we can say we will be able to fight, you know, corruption and all that. And I think the issue of Jackpot syndrome and all that came into me. Where I was telling a friend 2 days ago, and I was saying that we are in the British Council, and I was saying, I hope that one day the British will not just wake up and say, after your 2 years master degree, you only have 6 months and you return to your country. That would be a disaster. You see, but I'm not too sure. Those who are jackpotting now, let me put it that way, I'm not too sure whether they are taking that into account. You know, because if you sell houses and do this and that, and then after the program, you are asked to come back. You are coming back with nothing. You understand? And so, but all boils down to that we don't have a government that is doing enough to take care of the citizens. And that is why, you know, this our improving democratic governance is very, very relevant. That is the solution. Once you improve governance in this country, all these challenges, you won't find them. Nigeria has the resources more than many of these nations our people are running to. Nigeria has the resources, you know, natural, more than many of these countries that we are running to. It is simply because we have not been able to put in place a governance structure, you know, that will promote the well-being of everyone. And that is why that is happening. So, with poverty, talking about the level of poverty, you see, we need to be driven by scientific research. Rather, you see, too many of us rely on religion rather than empirical evidence of science. I'm a Pentecostal person, yes, but you see, we need to be driven by the knowledge of science. Science is a culture. Until you now begin to imbibe that culture, because you meet some people and say, look, this is the way to produce results, you know. But they will say, you science people, you are not these things, you know. She was just telling us about the fertilizer and all these things, you know. But you still see the bulk of our people going about, you know, with religious perspective that negates, you know, how to make things work. And that brings us to the issue of the education we are giving people. You know, we need to reinvent that to make people appreciate that. And the last one has to do with individual contribution to get fixing our society. And when I was closing my presentation, I did say that in every society, you have the state, you have the civil society. You see, if a great friend of mine will tell you that no government wants to deliver, but it is the civil society that will make government to deliver.
But the society, they are not talking.
Eh?
You just said that you are the only one.
So I think the way to go, you know, is to, for those that are talking, they should not get tired. You know, because if you get tired, things will get worse. You know, we have not gone down completely because some people are there still talking. So I want to encourage those who are still talking to continue to talk. You know, one day, you know, they begin to listen. And by the time the number of people who are talking, you understand. I think we should consciously begin to see way of increasing the number of people who are talking. By the time the number increases, you know, the noise becomes louder and louder. They will be forced to hear and they begin to make adjustments. And at that level, things will get better. Thank you very much.
Wow. Yes, that is a very, very insightful. Another grammar. Stimulating, another grammar. Inspiring, impactful, rich. Okay, so let us give people virtually to also, if there's any question, people joining virtually. Do we have any question or contribution from those online? Okay, so if there is none, can we just give our lecturer a warm clap? Not a cold one, a warm clap. Thank you so much, Dr. Aliko. We are so happy to have this and we look forward to future collaborations. So, thank you so much. And I assure you that that will come. So, I want to invite the President to present the... okay.
Thank you very much. Before we go into new administration, let us just finish what we started by appreciating our guest speaker. It is my pleasure to invite our guest speaker. I invite the President-elect, Asiwaju II. But that title we finish this evening. That Asiwaju II, you leave that position of President-elect. So on a more serious note, we have had a very stimulating lecture. And the responses we got from the audience with the level of questions we have made me to believe that the lecture was well digested. So can we give him another round of applause? Also, that's when you know professionalism. Because we just told him less than 1 week and he was able to bring this to. So we thank you once again. On behalf of the Commonwealth Scholars and Fellows, Alumni Association Nigeria, want to appreciate you for your erudity, for your scholarship, and for giving us a very stimulating lecture this evening. Thank you very much.
In addition to that, it has not finished. Yes. We are very generous. Thank you.